Food. I love food. If anyone's been listening to this podcast knows that one of the things we've talked about here a lot is food. So this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast, and today I want to talk about food and culture, or what you can learn from local food and how it tells a story of a region, or it tells a story of a place around the world. Let's start first with my home, Vietnam. Because Vietnam really is a foodie's paradise. If you love food, if you love to explore food, you need to come to Vietnam. First of all, Vietnamese food is not like Thai food. It's not like Chinese food. It's really somewhere uniquely in between. Why? Because the French were here. So there's a lot of French influence on Vietnamese cuisine. For example, take what's known as the Vietnamese banh mi, or the Vietnamese sandwich. That really is a sandwich, was brought in the French influence with the bread, which came here to Vietnam. And the Vietnamese took their own twist and they made their own type of sandwich through the banh mi. Pho is another one, which is basically the Vietnamese noodle soup. It's a noodle soup, but it's got a Vietnamese twist to it. And so that again tells, maybe some of the influence again of the French and the French cuisine that was here. You can be able to see that in with some of the pho. You can also see it here, which this is not written in my blog or podcast, with some of the meats and how they might roast the meats, or some of the fish that they have where they use dill on the fish, or some of the ways that they might cook the chicken. You can see, for some of it, the influences of the French cuisine in there and the way that it's cooked. And that might be some of the reasons why, Vietnamese food continues to be a very popular food, and many people like Vietnamese food because maybe it tastes a little bit like, French food, or the kind of food that we're sort of used to in the West, but it's got this little twist or tang to it, which makes it distinctly Asian. For example, things using like peanuts or lime, or some of the herbs that they use, such as cilantro, or the Vietnamese basil, which can all give this twist of it being an Asian food, where it may in some ways taste and seem very similar to something we may get in Paris or even in the Western parts of the world. Thailand is also another great example. I love Thai food. I lived in Thailand for a long time. It really is, again, a very tasty food. I've always said that Thai food is always the best in Thailand. So is Vietnamese food. If you really want to get good Vietnamese or Thai food, it's usually not in a restaurant, and wherever you're at. Yes, there's some great restaurants there, and this has nothing to do with restaurant owners that are there, but still the best food you get is, of course, always in their own countries. Why? Because they're able to get the spices and all the other things they're able to get. One of the foods that shows a great fusion with the culture is massaman curry. It's one of the world's most delicious dishes. This was named by CNN, and it's a clear example of cultural and culinary exchange. It combines Thai ingredients like coconut milk and local spices with foreign elements, which talk a bit about trade and how, trade influenced Thai's food. It's a story about openness and adaptability, and how the Thai people were able to embrace things from other countries. One thing about Thailand is Thailand was never colonized. They were not like Vietnam, where Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia were all colonized. But Thailand was never colonized. But yet the Thais were very open to other cultures and other places. And you can see that in with their food. Som dum is another one. One of my favorite dishes, of course, salads, is som dum. I personally like it not too spicy, though it can get very, very spicy. But som dum is a great green papaya salad. It's another dish which sort of reflects Thailand's sort of, regional diversity. It's originating from the northeastern region of Isan. It can be very, very spicy up there. They like it very, very hot. But it's a great, it's just a very great salad. It's got some green papaya, fish sauce, garlic, chili. And it really represents sort of the ingenuity of the Thai people to use what's readily available and to make it into a salad. Something which is not cooked, but to have something which was an actual salad. It's spicy, it's tangy, and it's bold. It's really one of my favorite salads. When I go to a Thai restaurant, you'll always find me, I order som dum. I always say som dum, not too hot, not too spicy, because I know that it can get to be extremely spicy. If I go to Thailand, I'm always ordering som dum. It's one of the things that I would order off the street there. And it's definitely one of my favorite dishes. Italy. Italy also is a great example of a country that, embraced a lot of different foods from different places. Sicily has a blend of Arab and Mediterranean flavors that you can find there. It's this, sort of historical crossroads that have left their mark on the world. Sicilian food. You see things like stuffed rice balls or eggplant salad, which you can find there. They use different things like raisins, almonds, citrus fruits, showcasing the Arab influence that came into this part of Italy. Japan is also an example. Like, we think of Japan as sort of this closed country where they sort of got their own food, but actually the Japanese were able to embrace different types of food. An example of this in Japan is the kaiseki, which basically is a traditional Japanese multi-course meal. This is an example of how food can reflect history and philosophy. It originated from the 16th century tea ceremonies. Kaiseki, it basically has the principles of balance and seasonality. Each course is prepared with, attention to detail as only the Japanese do. And is presented with artistic type of expression, which only the Japanese can do. The way they present their food artistically it's just amazing in Japan. The meal tells a story of the Japanese emphasis on mindfulness and integrating, natural elements into daily life. So kaiseki represents for the ingredients and minimalism are deeply tied to the Zen principles. So this shows how food can actually become part of culture. Sushi is also an example, but it's an example of a dish which has become globally recognized. It started as a method of preserving fish and fermented rice, but today it's evolved where sushi is popular throughout the world, and how different people have taken different takes on sushi. Where I'm sure the California roll is not exactly a Japanese, but that is you go to any type of Japanese or other restaurants in places like the United States, you'll find a California roll there. Mexico is also a story of a place that's embraced other cultures, and the food tells of some of its roots. One of Mexico's most renowned dishes is the mole. It's a complex sauce, often containing chocolate, chili pepper, and a mix of spices. The origin of this dish is debatable, but the most famous version, is said to have been created in Puebla. But it, contains many ingredients that were introduced by Spain, such as nuts and spices. So this kind of tells a story about, Spain coming in and influencing the Mexican food. Tacos are not just street food, but they're also a testament to Mexico's history and ingenuity. And, tacos is something which now is spread throughout the world. That it's filled with meat, vegetables, and seafood speaks to the adaptability of Mexican cuisine. Another one is from Ethiopia. Ethiopian food was influenced by trade with the Middle East and India. So, Ethiopian food introduced, specific spices to it where we're not generally found there, but now are very much a part of their culture, such as cumin, cardamom, and turmeric, which are now all used in Ethiopian food. So Moroccan, has a culture in every bite. The tangine, which is, is a culinary symbol, or some of their slow cooked stews that they have there. So for Moroccan, you can see it's kind of got this blend of the Mediterranean and some of Europe and North Africa going into many of their foods. India, too, is a great example. Biryani rice, of course, is an example of a complex history and culture. It's this, rice dish that has roots in the Persian cuisine, was brought to India. And, this has now become an Indian staple, the different rices that they have, or some of the other Indian dishes. Lebanon, too, with some of the olives and some of the different things which you can find in Lebanese food, has become very much a part, been brought in from other places. China is probably the one country where there's basically in every single place you go, there's a different type of food that they specialize in. From the south to the type of dim sum, to Sichuan that has the very hot and spicy food, where they were getting the spices in there through some of the spice routes, to some of the food up in Beijing, whether it's the Peking duck, all of those different types of food that is known for the different areas that you can find. Really, when you go to China, you find different types of food throughout the entire place in China, which makes it a great place to be able to visit. So I have several more here that I've done too, which would be, Spain too is also a great example of a place that has, lots of different, it's been influenced by different parts of the world through their food, especially with the tapas, and Turkey that's been influenced with baklava, and the kebab too, which is influenced other parts of the world too. So if you'd like to be able to read more about this, you can certainly find out more by checking out How Local Food Tells the Story of a Region's History. We'd love to have you be able to read this and join with us, because we're really great believers in that. We believe that food can really make a difference in understanding a culture, region, history, and a people. Thank you so much for listening. We sure do appreciate you, our listeners. We hope that you'll join and give us a thumbs up, that you'll read our blog, that you'll join with us as we continue to strive to live our life as a global citizen. Thank you.